Hey there and welcome to my PC build guide. Today we're going to do a step-by-step guide to build you a pretty kick butt PC. Now for some things you'll need for this build, you'll need a CPU, motherboard, RAM, power supply, hard drive, case, and some peripherals. You'll also want a nice open space to work in and a nice little table to work with too. You'll need some little bits here. I'll go over them. I have a little mechanized screwdriver, side cutters, and some needle nose pliers, and a couple different style screwdrivers. I have a standard Phillips head and a Torx head too. Yeah, so let's get started. For CPU installation, it's pretty simple, but you'll want to be careful. The CPU is probably the most fragile part of your computer, so just be careful when you're doing it. So take this little retention arm on the side. This is the CPU socket. Pull it out and lift it up. Fold it back. Now you see on your CPU, get focus, there's a little golden triangle. There we go. Little golden triangle on the side of the CPU. You'll line that up with the corresponding notch on the CPU's header. Then you'll just pop it in there. Do a quick little wiggle, make sure everything's secure. It should be good. So we'll lower the brackets, lower the arm. There's going to be a little bit of resistance, that's okay. That's from the spring load mechanism there. And there, now your CPU is installed. For the next step, we're going to be installing this bad boy. This is the CPU cooler. Now for this build this is just an Intel stock cooler. You can go with higher end aftermarket ones, but I just went with this one because it's reliable, and for the build it'll be good for our purposes. Now to install the CPU fan, all you'll need to do is just lower it down. You'll see there's these 4 screw points on the motherboard, and there are 4 screws on the CPU fan. All you have to do, just lower it into place. Get your screwdriver and just start screwing them into place. Now these tabs are spring loaded on the screws, so just go in a cross pattern, just so it doesn't add too much force to the CPU, otherwise it will shatter and you can't get that replaced afterwards. So you'll want to be careful here. But just, don't go Hulk strength on it and you'll be fine. So we're just going to do it in a little cross pattern. And like I said, just get all 4 of the screws reasonably tightened, but don't go too tight. There we go. Our CPU fan is installed. Now for RAM, there are a ton of choices out there. Data, Kingston, whatever brand you like. I went with a Data XPG. This is an 8 gig kit of RAM. Now for us, this will give us plenty of bandwidth. We want to do, open up a couple PowerPoints, or just even some basic web browsing. I'll show you how to install these now. Here we go. Now we're going to install our RAM. As you see on the stick of RAM itself, there's a little notch in the RAM stick. Now in the motherboard, there's a corresponding notch here. Lower these 2 little security arms back and line up the notch on the RAM to the slot in the motherboard, and just press it down and it'll lock into place. Now do the same thing on this side. Open up the arms. Now some computers have 4 RAM slots, this one only has 2. Now for a case, there's many options you can go with. You can spend anywhere from $20 to a couple grand on a case. I just went with a good HP case. Nothing super spectacular, but hey, it's a nice case. And for what we need for a budget build, this will work great for us. Next, we're going to put the motherboard in here. I've taken the side panel off the case already. Now it's time to install our motherboard. It's really not too bad. All you have to do is just drop it in here gently and get it lined up. Occasionally it gets stuck on one or two parts. No problem, just lower it in. There we go. And after it's in, we're going to need to start screwing in a couple screws. We're going to need to, on this case, the screws will line up with the holes here, here, and up there. Now that the motherboard's installed, we're going to have to set up a couple of the different headers, like the power, reset, and front audio. Now for those, they're pretty easy. You just pop them in, take a little connector. They're usually about 4 pins and they all match in colors. And they just plug right onto the top of the board. The audio one's here, USB plugs in right here, and here's your front cables for the card reader. Simple but effective. Now after that, we're just going to pop in the power supply. For this build, I ended up going with a Thermaltake 700 watt power supply. It'll be able to power everything in our system, and if we ever want to add some future hard drives in the future, we'll be able to with this. Okay, now we're just going to drop the power supply in from the top. This can be a bit tedious, and snap it in. Now our power supply is installed. Now we're going to need to plug in some cables. Now, this one right here is your 24 pin. That'll be going into this gray channel right here. Boom, just clicks right into place. Now this little guy, this little 4 pin, will be going in by this tan slot right by the CPU cooler. And you'll just drop it in. Boom. And it's all hooked up. Now for the CD drive, you're going to use one of these headers right here, and it'll just plug on to the back of the computer. Like so. Now your disk drive's ready to go. Now to install a hard drive in this case, it's pretty simple. All you do is you'll take this hard drive cage, pop a screw in the side of your drive, and it's ready to go. I went with a Kingston 240 gig SSD. It's a smaller SSD, but it's going to have plenty of storage for what we'll need to do for like some photos or whatever we're doing. So, to install this, lift up some of the cables, line up the cage, and slide it down. Now we're locked into place. Then we're going to add 2 screws here and here. And if we ever need to add future drives, there's a little tab right here. We can slide up the cage and we'll be able to add, like say if you want an extra terabyte drive for a scratch drive or whatever you like, you'll be able to hook it up then. Now for some final cable management. Now for the last thing we'll need to do is like plug power to the SSD. That'll be ready to go. Now you can take 2 of these little cables. These are data cables. That's what gets the data from the whatever your CD drive or hard drive to your motherboard. So you'll just plug it in one side, and there's 4 little slots up here, 1 through 4. It doesn't matter which one you go with. They all do the same thing. So it's just a matter of lining them up and plugging them in. We'll do the same thing for this black cable. It plugs right beside the SATA power cable. Sometimes it's easier to unplug this one first. And yeah, it's once you get building a couple of these, just minor upgrades, it's pretty easy in the end. So yeah, you'll just plug in, and this motherboard has 2 expansion slots. So if you want to add like another multi-card reader or another drive, you'll be able to put at least 2 more in here. And yeah, well lastly, we'll pop on the side panel and this will be ready to go. Here's our side panel. And you'll just line it up This can be a bit tricky to line up sometimes. So, oh, there we go. And then there's a screw in the back. You can just finger tighten that. There we go. That's all ready to go. And now with some green screen magic, we're now back in the studio. Now to install Windows, all you need to do is put Windows on like a USB flash drive. But to get started, I installed Windows on mine. Power button. Might take a minute or two for it to start up, but it's nothing major. And you can put whatever copy of Windows on it you want. I put Windows Server on mine, but it's up to you what you'd like to install. I just have to sign in on mine quick. There we go. Like I said, mine has Windows Server. Now the nice thing is, since we have a little extra storage, we are able to install a extra drive in here, or several extra. Now another thing you can add to your PC is one of these. I'm just going to get it quick. This is a really inexpensive graphics card. This is an NVIDIA GTX 710. You don't have to install a graphics card. All a graphics card basically does is it helps any like graphic intensive things, like even a little bit of gaming. You can buy one of these, but you don't have to. And for the purposes of what I'm using for this machine, I didn't. This is just from another PC of mine. So yeah, well, thank you again for watching, and bye for now. Thanks again.